Good evening, Françoise. I'd like to ask you about the reason of assistance of the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group. You are chair at this moment, which means this organization in the environment of the European Union.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here and tell you about EFRAG. And EFRAG is one of my favorite subjects, as you know. So EFRAG was born, in fact, at the time that Europe decided to adopt the IFRS. That was back, in fact, it was created in 2001. And it was really meant as being a technical advisor to the European Commission in the endorsement process of IFRS. It was created for that purpose. It's a private organization, but that has been created with a public interest objective of helping in endorsement of IFRS. But very quickly, EFRAG grew out of just being the advisor to the European Commission to represent, in fact, and argue for European views in the development of standards, in the development of IFRS. That's the why EFRAG was operated. So in the early years, from 2002, after the HICE regulation was adopted, up to 2006, EFRAG, in fact, fulfilled its role on a very informal basis. It was acknowledged nowhere. And it was, from the start, funded only privately. It was only the private sector funding EFRAG at that stage. Then in 2006, the European Commission decided to acknowledge, in fact, EFRAG as technical advisor very officially, and a working arrangement was signed. That was interesting, in fact, EFRAG with the assessment from a financial reporting perspective of every IFRS that would come for endorsement in Europe. And at that stage, in fact, the European Commission still didn't want to fund EFRAG. It took some more years before that happened. That happened in 2010, after one of the multiple reforms that EFRAG underwent. And the European Commission realized that if Europe had to have influence in the development of IFRS, and that took some money, some resources. And in fact, it decided to fund EFRAG from that date in order to give EFRAG the resources to play a prominent, in fact, role on an international basis. And that's more or less where we are today with the reform in 2013, 2014, that in fact starts just another page, in fact, in EFRAG's history, and that I'm more particularly going to describe this evening.
Okay, and the members of the group come from the private sector, accountants and financial directors and so on, or from the public sector, officers and civil servants?
The technical expert group is a group composed of essentially practitioners, but including an active academic person is considered a practitioner. So generally, those people operate in the private sector, but basically where their employees come from. And that may be auditors and what we call preparers, so those in charge of preparing the accounts. Generally, at that level, we have chief accounting officers, is typically, or financial controllers. That's typically the practitioners that we have. And we always want to have analysts, those people that use the financial statements, but since EFRAG was created up to now, we have only one in the group. So we need at least one. We would want more, and because we have only one, and it's so important to understand the users' needs, we have all sorts of efforts to outreach to users and understand what they need and what should be developed to ease their understanding of the prospects of whatever company they are studying.
Do you think that the quality of financial information of companies is better at that moment, from the year that the IFRS was applied, 9 or 5 years ago. No, 9 or 10 years ago.
Yes, it's in fact 10 years ago that IFRS was first applied in Europe. I think there are a lot of improvements that have been made. Improvements, first of all, because in Europe you have only one set of standards, IFRS, when you had multiple. So from the perspective of comparability, that's certainly much better. It is also better from the perspective of transparency because financial statements provide much more insights into the financial position, the financial performance than was the case before. And with IFRS being adopted in major areas of the world, it also has open access to capital markets more widely for European companies. So altogether, I would say that the adoption of IFRS has been a success. And as in every story, not everything is black and white, so it's not only rosy. There are a certain number of concerns that may have developed over the years, more particularly over the overload of information, as people put it. And some of the current standards may need to be revisited and improved. And they have now what they call the post-implementation reviews that's allowed to assess whether the change was for the better. And in the context of the European Commission, in fact, after 10 years, has felt the need to review the IS regulation and see whether it had produced positive effects. And the literature and the academic literature review or reviews that have been conducted at that stage show, in fact, a diversity of assessments that have been made, more particularly, in fact, a great difficulty in making the links really ensuring the links between the adoption of IFRS and the state of the current financial reporting, because you have had several other effects taking place at the same time. So what we learned from the academic literature review is kind of a mitigated image. But if I refer to the Maystadt reform and the investigation that was made at the time by Philippe Maystadt, it was clear from everybody that he talked to, and he had quite a wide range of interviews with a lot of practitioners at a high level, and everybody said IFRS was a right decision to make, and we should continue this IFRS policy in Europe. Now here are a series of issues that need improvement.
Thank you very much.